Turnware is proud to sponsor AfterSight's Navigating Life with Vision Loss podcast series. At Turnware, we provide managed IT services and custom-built hardware that help organizations stay secure and connected. We're honored to support these important conversations on safety, accessibility, and innovation. On behalf of Turnware and AfterSight, please enjoy this episode of Navigating Life with Vision Loss.
Welcome to Navigating Life with Vision Loss, an AfterSight original podcast. In each episode, we share stories, insights, and practical advice to help you navigate the journey of living with low vision or blindness. Together, we'll embrace each step with courage, grace, and hope.
Hello, I'm Kim Wardlow. I'm your host for Navigating Life with Vision Loss. Welcome back, and we are into our second series for 2025, which is us on safety. And this is our third week, so we are just getting started on safety. And today we are going to be talking about boundaries, and that they are so important in all aspects of our life in terms of our safeties, to be able to have good boundaries and to be able to say no with confidence. And I'm very happy to have as our guest today, Amy Wilson. She is a safety guide, speaker, and advocate who specializes in teaching individuals how to build healthy boundaries and communicate with confidence. She has extensive experience working with people navigating life changes, relationships, and self-advocacy, particularly within the blind and low vision community. So, Amy, welcome to NLVL.
Thank you very much. I'm excited to be here.
Well, thanks. I'm looking forward today to talking with you and helping our listeners to know what healthy boundaries look like and how they're critical, certainly for physical safety, but also mental and emotional well-being and safety as well. So I thought we could start with maybe you just telling a little bit about yourself and your story.
Thanks. I've been teaching self-defense, personal safety, and training in different personal safety things for over a decade of my life, whether that was learning wrestling and judo or teaching different self-defense programs. And I loved the safety or learning martial arts, stuff like that. And as I got older, I realized that there were some different sort of pieces missing in my mind when it came to trying to train blind people. I knew there was pieces that I was kind of missing, and for me, it was that psychological safety piece. So many people want to focus on the physical safety, and so my brain kind of went towards the psychological safety, is what I like to call it, and to be able to provide choices. So March 2023, I founded Safety Positive Foundation, and been working hard to ensure that we provide choices, educate people about personal safety and in any of those things. But and I do it also with the domestic violence survivor mindset with it too. So many of us in the blind community are survivors of different kinds, and so that's, I think, gives us another unique spin, because we do all of our trainings with a positive attitude, and that's probably part of my just personal brand of, I like being positive about things.
Yeah. Well, I think it's always helpful if you're able to be positive about things, especially if you're dealing with some difficult things. Amy, what do you think is the biggest myth that people believe about setting boundaries?
They don't feel that they're allowed to, is what I've discovered, that we are told so many times, especially as young individuals and as we grow up, to take the help, even if we're not comfortable. So it's a lot of us don't even feel like we are entitled to have boundaries about the things we want or don't want.
And when did you realize that you needed to learn to say no?
Oh my goodness. I was a serial people pleaser for many a years, because of the not wanting to say no. And it was probably within the last 5 years that my brain started to come around towards, um, understanding, how it was an issue for me, in different ways. And so yeah, that's kind of where my brain goes. Is just it recent work in progress, so to say. But I've done a lot of work between now and then.
Yeah. Well, and as you said, it's an ongoing
Mhm.
process too. It's not just one and done. Um, how would you, for our listeners, how would you define healthy boundaries?
Good question. Um, when we're talking healthy boundaries, it's where you are interacting and communicating with people with dignity and respect. And so if people are not being respectful towards you and your boundaries, I'd consider that unhealthy. But healthy is them listening to you when you're bringing up concerns, when you say I'm not comfortable with this, and them going absolutely not, let's do something else. Like, those are good signs of healthy boundaries.
Okay. And I know sometimes I've heard people, well, they need to set a boundary, but like you said, maybe they don't feel like they're allowed to, or they feel like they're being unkind or even mean. Like, oh, I don't want to tell them that because it'll hurt their feelings or it'll be unkind. And that's confusing being kind with having no boundaries because they're not the same thing.
I can very much agree with that. I think there's several books that are kind of popping in my mind as we are talking about this. But when we are so busy trying to help others and do all the things, we often are not respecting ourselves. We're not being kind to ourselves, and then we find ourselves depleted of the energy that we need, because that we are trying to be so kind to everybody else. So I spend quite a bit of time telling people it's okay to put yourself first. They teach us that when we get on an airplane, put your mask on before you put
Right.
on your child. And it's the same thing. If we're being mean to ourselves and not being kind to ourselves, that's one, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And two, we're not able to help people at the full capacity that we would like to be able to. So that those are somewhere my thoughts go.
Yeah. Well, I know I was in a training recently and it slightly used in a slightly different context, but I think it still works here that clarity is kindness. And so
Hmm.
if you're clear about your boundaries, obviously, as you said, that's being kind to yourself, but it can also be kind to that other person because if you're not clear and you don't say no when you need to or set a boundary when you need to, you're just it's going to impact that relationship and you're not going to feel good about that person because they're going to cross a boundary that you've never told them about.
Hmm. Yep. Clarity definitely is kindness.
Yeah.
It might feel weird, at first, but once you start getting into it, it does get easier.
Yeah. How do you know if you're trying to determine if your boundaries are too weak or perhaps too rigid? How do you determine that?
So when I think of the weakness stuff, or the where I don't generally like to use the word weakness. I'm like, that's areas where
Mhm.
we can grow in.
Mhm.
Um, but when we feel like we can need to grow in different areas, are people continuously to try to coerce you into doing things you're not comfortable with, even after you have stated no, and then you still find yourself doing it, or you have given yourself like a time boundary of I'm going to do this at this time, and then somebody else is doing that. No, no, I need you to do this, and you cave. Uh, that is a way of you being weak on your boundaries. Like I get, like, for the example of the time one, I know people like to be flexible, but when we break promises to ourselves on things we want to do, we can build a mistrust within ourselves. So it can be harder to tell ourselves, well, next time I'm going to stick with it, because your brain's going to go, well, no, you didn't. You screwed it up. And a lot of self talk on that one. And
Right.
then for people who are too stringent on boundaries, I like to say, in some ways, because my brain kind of goes into two different patterns. I do know that people who use boundaries, they weaponize them. They go around and tell everybody's what their boundaries are. That is not what boundaries are designed to do. It is like almost unspoken rule amongst yourself of this is what I'm tolerating. Now you can have conversations with people, but if you are, using it as this weaponized tool, then I would say that is some pretty too strong in boundaries, and we need to maybe reevaluate why are we being so focused on these boundaries.
Hmm. That's good advice. Well, whenever we set boundaries, there's always somebody that's going to challenge them. It's almost
Oh yes.
inevitable. What are those common pitfalls that you see with the folks you work with that ways that they're challenged, their boundaries are challenged?
Well, for many of the people I've worked with, setting boundaries is fairly new to them. So it's the initial stages of learning how to set boundaries, uh, and then um, like for example, for me, when I started working on this boundary business of being better about it, I set up a safe word for myself, where I would use the term Beetlejuice, because if you cross my boundaries 3 times and I had to, the first time I'd be like, okay, that's a mistake. They messed up.
Mhm,
Second time, okay, maybe there's something else going on here. Third time is a pattern, and that's when, especially if it's the same boundary they keep crossing. For example, the touch boundary is a big one.
mhm,
That it gave me the signal of, okay, this is not just you, to keep track of these things, is how I started dealing with it. But I also know that when I started setting boundaries, and when I've getting better about when people talk to me disrespectfully, I tell them, you're not going to talk to me with disrespect. I'm
mhm.
not doing it. I'm not telling them this is my boundary and you're going to talk to me X, Y, and Z.
Right.
I'm saying you're just not going to talk to me this way. Now, again, at the beginning, I struggled, so I really try to tell people, you're not going to get it right 100% of the time, and remember, it's a work in progress, and to give yourself grace in those moments when you do mess up, because again, for people who, whether you're new to it or you want to get back to where you're better about it, you're going to have some ups and downs in that process.
Mhm. What would you say to someone who knows they're being used, but they keep giving in? They set the boundary, but they're not holding it.
I would say that in those moments, to give yourself a little more credit and know that you're allowed to be treated with dignity and respect. There's usually some underlying psychological thing that is stopping you, um, from feeling like you can hold your boundaries. And so I would encourage you, if you are struggling with it, that it is something that you need to work on. And there's, we have different options for people to practice within Safety Positive Foundation and stuff like that. But um, it can take time, especially if you are struggling with it. But a lot of times I hear where people don't want to take accountability and just, well, it's everybody else's problem. Like, no, if you are 18 and above, you have to take accountability. Your safety is your duty. No superhero is going to come in and rescue you. And so learning how to advocate for yourself, or just say no, because no is a complete sentence. If that's those things you struggle with, I would encourage you to looking into getting some training and resources, because there's quite a few out there.
Yeah. 'Cause it does come down to a choice, even if it's a hard one.
Yes, I mean, there's been times in my past where I've looked back and I'm like, you know what, I was choosing my own madness, and I had to accept that, and to a certain degree, because I know that part of it was just situation abuse, but I'm big on, you've got to take personal accountability. It's not fun, but once you do, you feel like you're more in control of the situation, and that can be very empowering.
Does blindness or some level of vision loss, does that impact making and setting boundaries, keeping boundaries? Does it make it more difficult?
I would say yes and no. In some ways, if you have low expectations of what blindness is, how blind people are supposed to be treated, like, then it's in your mindset, well, this is just happening because I'm blind. One of the things I've been discovering in the last few months is that blind and disabled people are not the only ones who struggle with boundaries. It
That's
is
true.
it is a human being problem. I hear my sighted friends talking about how people are pushing their boundaries, and I'm like, "Well, tell them no," and they're just like, "Well, this and well." I'm like, "I'm used to hear this from blind people, but y'all, what the heck?" Like, it's a human nature problem.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely not any particular group of people. It's everybody,
Mhm.
potentially can have more difficulty. Some people seem to have a a better, I don't know if it's self-confidence, but they're able to set boundaries, more easily than others, but definitely.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. So we know it's important to say no and to do it with confidence so people don't think, well, maybe they're not serious. What are some techniques for saying no?
Practice. Practice, practice, practice. That is probably my biggest tip, and get training. If you struggle with saying it, one of the things we like to say is no is a complete sentence. And I've known people who are extremely college educated that want to explain why they're saying no. You don't owe anybody an explanation for why you're telling them no. No is a complete sentence. So just practice saying it in your head, at first. If that feels weird, then saying it out loud. But yeah, practicing what you want to say and how you want to say it is very powerful.
Do you think it could be helpful if you have a person that is a safe person, to kind of do that in role play, to have somebody kind of push back?
It absolutely can. But I would dare say that I know, for me personally, when I first started doing that, um, I wanted to throw up, telling people
Mhm.
no, you're not going to talk to me like that. It made my stomach do flip flops. So for me to try to pull that off with a friend at first was not something my brain was ready to do. Once I kind of got through it, yes, practicing with a friend can be very powerful, because I actually, it's one of my friends several years ago, and they were all wanting to learn the physical side of self defense, and I was like, "You got to speak up to me. Like, what are you going to say in these moments?" And they were like, "Well, I don't know." And I was like, "If you can't speak up to me as a friend, then when it's a stranger, you're not going to speak up at all." And
Right.
so, that's an important piece. If we are struggling to speak up to our friends and our family about our concerns, it will spill over in other areas.
What do you do when a person doesn't respect your no?
That comes down to choice, and you have to decide in that moment, or decide ahead of time. uh, are you going to put yourself around this person, or are you going to remove yourself from being around this person? I personally choose the, I'm not, if you're not going to respect my boundaries, I'm going to separate myself, because you're obviously not wanting to treat me with dignity and respect. So it absolutely comes down to choice. And sometimes, as I'm thinking out loud here, but we have certain family members we need help with, to help us with different things, and circumstances be what they may. Uh, Limit your energy, limit your exposure around those people, and work to figure out other alternatives. But I usually get a kickback of, "Well, I've got friends and family, and I don't know." Like,
Right.
there are always choices.
Right. That's a good point because it can be difficult if you're relying on a person and if they're holding that over you. Like you might need that's the person that usually gives you a ride or whatever it
Mhm.
might be to be able to find an alternative for what that person's doing for you,
Yes.
which can be difficult
It
depending what that is.
absolutely can. I've been in those situations where my choices were extremely limited, and that's where I had to just go, okay, let's focus on how much energy we can, we're willing to give that person, because yes, this is a season where we've just kind of have to work through it, but seasons don't last forever.
What's the emotional cost of always saying yes?
It is emotionally draining. There is an actual uh, thing with having energy. How much energy are you going to give a person? But uh, not only draining on your energy, you you lose faith in yourself. You lose the ability to trust yourself when you're always just, well, I wanted to do that, but I want to make people happy. Like that, it can be a very, very slippery slope. So learning to get ahead of setting boundaries earlier in life is definitely beneficial.
Yeah. And you've touched on this, but just staying firm. If you set a boundary and then the person makes you feel guilty that you've set this boundary, to be able to stay firm in that.
Yes, yes. And well, and as we kind of, like, one of the things I think I want to mention is there is a term called instrumental aggression, where people will say, well, if you don't do this for me, I'm not going to do this for you. And that is like wildfire in
Yeah.
the disability community, where people are like, well, if you want this ride to the doctor, then you're going to agree with what I say. And that is extremely wrong for people to do. And it's definitely a type of aggression that people can display.
Yeah. And just needing to figure out what your options are so you can hold firm to that. And
Mhm.
like you said, you might need to not interact with that person anymore.
Exactly.
I'm wondering if you can give us some other real life examples, either from your own experience or maybe folks you've worked with. Like when the first time you said no and really stuck with it, how did that feel?
So, um, it felt like I wanted to throw up. And it did for the first few times, if I'm being quite honest. I'm very aware that I have some emotional trauma from my past, to where just saying what's on my mind is something I'll overthink the conversation and have the conversation 100 times in my head before I would have it out with somebody. So working through the nerves of it, and once I started to figure out that you had people that would push back and try to coerce you into, trying to coerce me into doing things, those
Mhm.
became faster red flags for me, where people that I've talked with that are like, I'm sorry, you're feeling that way. Let's work to get better at it. Those are the people that I'm just like, what? Wait a minute, what's going on? Especially in the beginning, because I was like, is this normal? Uh, but yes, it is normal. People, when you say no, people should respect it. They shouldn't need the whole entire backstory of this, that, or the other. So I know one of the first times that I used my what we call our verbal access training, I used it unbeknownst to me, just coming out naturally. I used it on my ex-husband. And for a very, very long time, there was a lot of mental, verbal, and emotional abuse between me and him, even after the divorce. And when I used it to advocate for myself, I went, wait a minute, did I just do that? And it worked. I was sitting there like doing a happy dance in the living room and stuff like that. So, um, and that's where I also started to understand it takes time, and especially when you have stuff from your past to kind of work through and heal on. So, yeah, those are the things
Yeah.
that are coming to my mind.
Yeah, that was gonna be my next question of, like, a time when you set the boundary and the person didn't push back and was like, "Okay," and changed their behavior, 'cause that no matter how nervous you were, I would think that would feel great if you had a good result.
Yes, it absolutely is. And the other thing that I've learned is, if you've been around the same people for years and years and years, and you decide like, okay, I'm not going to tolerate these things, it's going to you're going to get people out of your life, because they can no longer coerce you into doing the things that they previously had you doing, and they're going to act like you're the problem. And
Mhm.
So those are some things to be mindful of, and don't get in your head about like, well, I'm becoming this horrible person. Like, no, you're actually treating yourself with dignity and respect, and yes, people are not going to always like that.
Yeah, no, you're getting healthier, and not
Mhm.
everybody bene sees themselves as benefiting from you getting healthier. But I think the people that really have your best interests at heart will respond positively if it's something that they didn't understand it was a boundary. If they're respectful of that, then those are the folks that, you know,
You want to keep around.
you wanna keep. Yeah, that
Hmm.
you keep.
Hmm. Exactly.
What's the hardest boundary you've had to defend?
um The hardest boundary I've had to defend in my life would probably be being sexually assaulted. Um, and Because when you're in the moment, it, they're not really caring about treating you with dignity and
Mhm.
respect, and the not only the physical harm but the psychological harm that can occur in those situations, scenarios, is extremely tough. And I know mine happened in 2019, and it took me a few years to even tell people, because I had a lot of shame wrapped around that's even happened to me. And it took somebody I know that also teaches self-defense to say, you did the best you could with what you had at the time. And, don't don't be too hard on yourself. And that actually helped to start giving myself some grace. But yeah, when people want to break physical boundaries and do things that it's more about them, not about you, that
Mhm.
those are the really tough ones in my opinion.
Well, and certainly, for anyone who has had that experience to find a person, a resource, organization, to help with that and to be support you in that,
Yes.
is important too because it's not your fault, and as you said, it's more about the other person than you, but it can take a lot of, counseling and support to be able to overcome something like that.
Yeah, the physical scar is healed.
Mhm.
Psychologically, yeah,
Yes.
it's been 6 years, and I know I'm still jumping through some hoops in my brain
Yeah.
from time to time. So yeah.
So getting, close here to closing, if there's someone listening today that really needs to draw a line and set a boundary this week, what is the first step for them?
Deciding you're going to set the boundary. Um, this could, you hearing this could be a moment of, I'm inspired to set boundaries. Don't try to go hard and set 15 boundaries all at once. You're going to get overwhelmed. Focus on one and grow from there. That is probably my biggest advice. And we've given some other tips in talking, like, practicing, getting training, those sorts of things, but just deciding that, this is the boundary that I'm holding to. And there are, just for reference, there are 15 different types of boundaries that people can have. We generally think of physical or psychological, mental boundaries, but there are
Mhm.
lots of different boundaries that you can start with, whichever you're most comfortable with, or you feel like this is the one I really need to work on. But
Right.
the studying, or focusing on one specific one is the sweet spot.
And if you're if you're now in the phase of you've been setting boundaries, maybe you have, uh, had relationships that did not survive that. Not necessarily a bad thing because if
Hmm.
you're getting rid of unhealthy relationships, that's a good thing. But you're in the space now where you're trying to rebuild your confidence and maybe you're trying to establish new relationships, which can be hard if you've um had people walking on you and you don't want that to happen again, but you wanna be able to have new friends, new relationships. Do you have advice for someone who's in that phase?
When you're meeting new people, don't fall back into old patterns. If somebody is crossing a boundary, tell them right away. So you're setting the expectation right out the gate. You don't want to have somebody cross a boundary 5 or 6 times, and then 6 months later you're like, hey, this bothered me. They're gonna be like, wait a minute, why didn't you say it
Right.
the first time? So for those of us who are working through it, the sooner you can speak up when somebody does cross a boundary, it will be more effective long term for you.
It's great advice. Well, I appreciate all this information that you've given us today. Amy, is there anything you want to, tell our listeners about your foundation and your work or how to contact you?
So you can find Safety Positive Foundation. We have a Facebook page. We're on LinkedIn. We have a YouTube channel. And we also have a website, safetypositivefdn.com. adaptations.org that we have, and we're posting, getting all the, we have all the stuff up there about the different trainings and programs that we offer. And we always encourage people to get into our Safety Positive Guide, because that gives you 24/7 access to our community, our resources, and we post all of our trainings in there so people can know when those happen. Like our weekly tea times that we have, that's probably our most popular one, because every month we have a different topic. For example, we've been doing this for over two years, and we finally decided next month in October we are doing mythological safety. So, what do you do when the zombies
Wow.
come? How do you stay safe in the wizarding world? We're gonna have some fun with that, but we are usually very, very serious with what we're talking about. Like June, we always talk consent and boundaries. May is always mental health for us, because we really are passionate about people feeling more psychologically safe, and then the physical safety can kind of come next. But when you have the confidence in yourself to advocate and feel psychologically safe, you are going to respond a lot faster when and if your physical safety is in jeopardy. And we really want people to just know, with Safety Positive Foundation, you have choices for personal safety. That is a very big deal to me. We historically have not had choices like our sighted counterparts, and I say no more. So we will keep offering more and more choices as we grow.
Well, thank you, Amy. Definitely, that is a great final word and takeaway for folks. You have choices. You can set your boundaries, and it may be difficult, but holding firm to your boundaries, you will be healthier and probably in the long run happier, and have healthier relationships.
And no
you're
is a complete
worth
sentence.
that. Yes, no is a complete sentence,
Mhm.
and you have value. So thank you
Yes.
so much, Amy. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I always love being around y'all.
Well, next week, we'll continue with our overall topic of safety, and we're going to be looking at home safety, so smart tools and practical adaptations. So we hope you'll tune in for that. If you have any feedback on this episode or any of our shows, you can send that to feedback@aftersight.org, or if you prefer to call, that number is 720-712-8856. So again, 720-712-8856. And you can access more information, resources, check out all of our various podcasts at www.aftersight.org. And we hope everything that you've learned today helps you navigate your life with vision loss.